Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Hello. Leslie, I'm
Hi.
for Permanent Weight Loss. Yes, today we have Kelly Adami with us here today. We are graced by her presence, which is amazing. This has been a podcast, that's been waiting to come out. Long time coming that I've been wanting to invite Kelly on here. I've actually been working with Kelly myself and have invited her to begin working a little bit with our clients as well, because Kelly helps people specifically with relationships. I'll let her tell her entire background and her story in a moment. But real quick, I just wanted, obviously on this podcast, we talk a lot more than just about food, body, and weight. And we know that the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. And so, when it's talking about our relationship with food, body, and weight, we know that, if we have a negative relationship in that area, it oftentimes means that we have a negative relationship with ourselves. Our inner self-talk may not be nice, which may have come from parenting, which may have come from all of the things in life, traumas, or, some of our clients with abuse or whatever. And, and then translates over into our relationships with other people as well. When our relationships with ourselves are not, the best that they could be. And Kelly just really helps people in the full gamut in the spectrum. And so, we're just so grateful to have you. And thanks for being willing to come and share your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's such a delight to be here. I'm so happy.
That's
Come
amazing.
spend some quality time with you and your amazing audience.
Absolutely. Yes. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, telling us, your backgrounds, and then if you want to just dive right into your story, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm a trained and educated psychotherapist, specifically a depth psychotherapist, which means I'm always looking at what's happening kind of with the subconscious mind, the nature and culture, and how those things shape each other. So it's a pretty interesting subset of psychology. But I'm also a certified relationship coach and life coach, and I have training in trauma and addiction and all kinds of stuff. So I've been in private practice for almost 10 years, was originally based out of San Diego, California, and then really moved completely virtual because of COVID. So now I have clients all over the country and I love it. So, and my focus is that I do work with men, women, and couples. But specifically at the moment, I have this heart to work with women, high achieving women, helping them go from single and dating to successfully married, and helping them take that, navigating that journey in modern times, because it's sometimes
tricky
a tricky
out
one
there these days.
Yes,
absolutely.
For a lot of really understandable reasons. When we start to, I always say we don't know what we don't know, and that was definitely my journey, personally and professionally. And so as I have discovered so much, my goal is to share and equip and encourage other people. And that's kind of the focus of my work. Yeah. I want you to have successful relationships, want you to be happily married, want you to have all the things your heart desires. And that always starts with the relationship you have with yourself. Because 100%. I always say the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for all your other relationships. Right. So that's at the core of the work that we do.
It's so amazing. Yeah. And something that my audience has heard me said a lot is considering the fact and that's why I love that you work with high performing, people, especially women, because it's just the more successful that I see that someone is at their career, especially women, the more challenging that it is for them in their personal lives, whether it's food, body, and weight, or whether it's with romantic relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
For anyone listening who's in that category, and I know most of our audience it's just like, there's no shame in any of it, of like not being successful means absolutely nothing about you. It's just literally looking at it, putting a flashlight on what you don't know that you don't know, like Kelly's saying, and knowing that you can change and anything becomes possible. I love your tagline of, what is it?
Love bravely and expect miracles.
Miracles.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Because I think even what you just described is so much of the modern journey of so many women. It was definitely my journey, where we're sort of empowered and able to go be successful at anything we want to be successful at, right? We can go pursue degrees and educations and create business, and society benefits from that as a whole. We're all blessed because of all the gifts and talents of strong, talented, amazing women. But no doubt there seems to be this strong pattern of women who are very successful in these areas of their life, but then are struggling one way or another in the area of their personal relationships, their romantic relationships. And that became a part of academically what became interesting to me. I don't know if you want me to kind of go a little bit.
Yeah, please go there. Yeah, that'd be great.
So when I was in graduate school to become a therapist, you had to write a graduate thesis and you had to do research. And when I was there, they said, your thesis will pick you. You kind of have to wait, be curious, so, and I actually thought I was going to do like trauma with vets coming back for more. That was sort of where I was going, and that's not what happened. God had a different plan. And so I read something by Carl Jung, who's like a famous psychoanalyst. People may have heard of him, and I love his work. I'm a huge fan. And he had a quote that I read where he said, anywhere in a society, you have a lot of individual people struggling with the same struggle, the same pain. He said, there's something from the collective unconscious that's trying to make itself known through those individual patterns. Does that make sense? Like there's a larger pattern in the collective consciousness. And so I thought, well, okay, this is interesting. Like in the modern Western world, we have enormously, have had enormous progression and success, technology, business, opportunities for women, all of these things. And yet the divorce rate is still extremely high. People are still really struggling to find high value partners and build a beautiful life. People are struggling just to find dates with quality men in some cases, or women. And so it was like, I'm like, okay, so why would it be that we progress in all these ways, but in this area, I'm seeing a lot of people struggle. It was also my personal experience, but I wasn't trying to do it for me. It just sort of was how it happened organically. And so I thought, okay, well, what's the invitation to why are we struggling there? And I always say to all my clients, pain is a feedback loop. So if you have pain in your knee, it sends a signal to your brain to say, something's out of alignment. I need you to pay attention, make some adjustments to get into balance. Well, the same thing is true mentally and emotionally when we're in pain. So so it follows that it's like, why are we in pain and struggling in this area? So that became the depth and breadth of my research, and it was transformational. It was transformational for me personally, because what I discovered, I sort of as an experiment applied to my own life, which led ultimately to me receiving and marrying the most extraordinary man I've ever met. I didn't even know there were men like my husband. I didn't know that I could be loved the way that I'm loved and protected and cherished by my husband. We just celebrated 8 years of marriage last week. And I love him more today. And I could cry talking about him, and that's a whole nother story. But the work that I uncovered and then the journey that I took led me directly to being able to receive that, because it was an area that I couldn't break through prior to that. And I'd done a lot of work. I had been in therapy. I was a seeker. So I was like, why am I still struggling in this area? Right here, I'm in graduate school even. So and then that work was so transformational. And, my thesis work, that became the focus of my private practice. I did clinical training and other things, but then that was like what called me. And I've been literally had a wait list for 7 years and have helped like hundreds and hundreds of individuals and couples navigate that journey. And it's been amazing.
It's really amazing. And I'm sure people listening are like, tell us, Kelly, what did you find? What are the things that are holding, women back from finding great men and partners and getting married happily? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's it's a handful of things, but there are some key ones for sure, and some of which I know are already kind of things that you talk about. That's why I was happy to come do this, because there's so much like kind of, synergy in the work that we do in the world. And so um the thing is so I just also want to caveat, I mean, everything that I teach can be applied in different ways to different relationships or different type of relationships. My focus primarily is opposite sex, opposite gender, monogamously
Mhm.
oriented, want to be married, maybe have kids. Like, that's just so that's helpful as a context. But basically, um you know obviously the relationship that we have with ourselves is key, and the relationship that we have with ourselves is always a direct reflection of the conditioning that we had growing up, right? If you think about it, practically speaking, your parents or your early caregivers were the very first human beings you were in relationship with. So for better or worse, whatever and for everybody, usually it's a mixed bag. No judgment. I'm not a therapist. It's about blaming your parents, right? No judgment. But we got to be curious, cause and effect. People don't do what they do for no reason. So it becomes really valuable. And sometimes people have resistance to this because they don't want to, say things bad about their family. They don't want to be negative, right? And so it's sort of like, look, you love your parents and those people, they did the best that they could. But it's really valuable for us to be able to get honest and look and see, like, what shaped me in good ways that I want to keep, and maybe not such good ways. So those are the first people you have a relationship with. So that's the blueprint that you receive. So whatever you saw, or whatever, however you were, whatever kind of attunement or lack of attunement you got, like, I see you, you're matter. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? Like, if you didn't, whatever variation of that you got, that becomes what's familiar. That's your baseline, and that is what you will unconsciously gravitate to in an adult romantic partner. This is why women who had like alcoholic fathers, tend to gravitate towards men who are maybe even functioning alcoholics, but alcoholics nonetheless. And sometimes you don't discover these things in the beginning. You kind of realize that once you're dating them. It's where
Mhm.
you see just, family, they call it pathologies or generational patterns. Though a lot of times we don't realize we are sort of unconsciously. So understanding what those are and then trying to decide what you actually want and don't want for yourself, super important. I would also say, connected to that, is looking at the conditioning of what you believe about yourself, what you believe about relationship, what you believe about the opposite sex. All those things are connected. If there's been any patterns of trauma, traumatic incidents, traumatic patterns, things that you want to look at and heal from, because otherwise you're going to be guarding against things that get
Mhm.
conditioned there. There's three things that you have to have a successful long-term monogamous relationship or marriage: chemistry, which is God given, it's either there or it isn't, right? Communication, which some people are better at than others, but it's 100% a learnable skill. Everybody that I work with, I do a lot of work around communication. It's one of my specialties. Third, compatibility. And compatibility is, do we essentially want the same things? Do we value the same things, right? Big rocks. Do we both want kids? Do we both want to live in the United States? Do we both want to work full time, or someone stay at home with the kids and somebody work? All those kinds of things. So those are the three things that you always need to line up, because otherwise it doesn't work. So that's like a
Mhm.
good baseline to know. But the other thing that was life changing for me was the understanding of polarity, which is about creating complementarity within ourselves first, and then in a relationship. And that's all this talk you hear about masculine and feminine
Mhm.
energy. I would like to just point out, there are a lot of people who talk about this online and, who know very little about it. So you have to be
Mhm.
careful and discerning about who you listen to, because
Yes.
I think if you don't understand all of it, it can kind of be damaging and confusing without the full context. But
Mhm.
the whole idea is that we all carry masculine and feminine energy. Okay. And so you want to balance that within yourself. And then in romantic relationship, you have to kind of decide what's the primary position you want to sit in. Do you want to primarily sit in the feminine energy position? Do you want to primarily fit in the masculine energy position? When you're in romantic committed relationship, there's four of you. His masculine, his feminine, you're masculine, you're feminine. So there's a dance there, right? The same way you think of a ballroom dance, couple dancing beautifully across the floor that takes your breath away, right? But that's because you have one person in one role, one person in the other role, leading and following, leading and receiving. And so this comes down to so many things, but masculine energy essentially is anytime a human being is active, pursuing, thinking, it's rationally oriented, it says I think, it says I want, it's anytime that you're working, anytime you're pursuing a goal that's performance oriented, all of that is masculine energy. It's giving and leading first. Feminine energy, by contrast, is about receiving first and giving back. It's oriented towards vulnerability, emotions, being present, beauty, sensuality, sexuality, creativity. It gives back when it's been given to. It says, I feel and I don't want. A feminine energy person gets what they want by saying no to what they don't want. It's an indirect position of power in a healthy way. What I found in my own experience was that I was raised predominantly to function almost exclusively in my masculine energy. So I was a firstborn daughter, no brothers. I had a Hispanic father who devoted to our family, but